Well, Jim Campbell. I was a little bit concerned for most of that game, despite its slightly chaotic and hectic nature, that we were going to be starved of a goal or two. But my goodness, what an end to that game. Bournemouth won, West Ham won. Come on.
It's Mr. Monday night, mate. If you get Julian Lopetegui on a Monday night, there's going to be Barclays. And it was like there was a real little sprinkling of Barclays right at the end because we'd been good and because we'd been patient. That's how it felt.
Do you think that's what it was? Do you think that the Christmas elves turn up and went, all right, everyone's behaved themselves, come on, have a bit of this.
Give them a penalty.
Here's a controversial penalty and here's a stunningly good free kick for you.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yes, I was worried that that Krampus was going to turn up and say, no, you're not having any goals. Despite the amount of shots that have been on show this evening, you know, I am going to make sure that every defender manages to block every single shot. Because at some point I thought the keepers were making say there was blocks and all this. I thought, this is good, I'm enjoying this. But as a famous man once said, a game without a goal is like an afternoon without sunshine. And we got them. We got the 2 goals. What did you make of the game, Jim? Obviously the end was quite spectacular, but what did you make of the whole game in general?
I enjoyed it in general. I too started to lose hope that we were going to actually see some goals, which is obviously the best bit. Can't stress that enough. But actually, I thought it was 2 very interesting performances from 2 very different teams at the moment. I think we kind of saw 3 different versions of each team, and I'll kind of walk through that a little bit. Now, I think it looks to me like West Ham are starting to click a little bit, and they are starting to turn a corner under Lopetegui. They looked a lot slicker in the first half than we've seen them be recently. Kudus, Paqueta and Jarrod Bowen had some nice interplay. Wan-Bissaka's looked good again, and really impressed with how he can play as either a left fullback or a right fullback, and it not seem to diminish the quality. So I thought they looked a lot better than they have done recently, and it was quite fun. Bournemouth also looked dangerous, also looked tidy, so it felt like a quite evenly matched first half, where I thought West Ham probably shaded it a little bit on the balance of play.
I agree with that, yeah.
And then the second half, it was like they both just went a bit Sunday League for about half an hour.
It was brilliant.
When no one could... It was brilliant. It was better for it. The quality of the football was worse. The quality of the entertainment was much higher. Because no one could string... Like, they couldn't really get any moves going, and everyone was misplacing passes. As you say, that's when all the blocks started happening. People are sliding all over the place. We hear about greasy pitches a lot. And you don't really see a greasy surface or hear about a greasy surface anywhere other than a football pitch. And, whack that lard on if this is what happens, because that was really fun, really enjoyable. And then obviously when West Ham get the penalty, like they both woke up. Like Bournemouth properly came to life. Like, hang on, you've seen all the late goal stats popping up on your screens. We're having some of this, And it was great.
It felt like Bournemouth thought, no. We're not losing to you lot here. I'm intrigued by the idea of a greasy service, because what. A little bit of goose fat or something, do you know what I mean? Would really, I think...
very Christmassy.
Yes, indeed. Certain parts of the world, goose is a big thing for Christmas, certainly in some Central and Eastern European countries. So I don't think the goose community would complain. I think they would be honoured, in fact, if we were to use that. But some sort of lard, as you say, can certainly make the Premier League a little bit more interesting, perhaps. But bollocks aside, it was... I do want to go to that last... sort of few minutes of the game, although of course there was 8 minutes injury time.
I was thrilled when I saw 8 come up. I don't know where it came from.
It was great,
but I was absolutely delighted.
I know what you mean. I thought we were going to get a winner, and I thought it was going to go to Bournemouth, but we didn't. But I think we have to be happy with the game and the way it finished. And the game really changed in that moment where Wan-Bissaka plays the ball. Then of course Füllkrug has a chance, should do better. Yeah. Really,
right at Kepa, isn't it? It was a good save. It was one of those ones where it looked better live than it did on the replay.
Yes, I know what you mean. And then it went to VAR, and Tyler Adams was deemed to have handballed it. And it's funny, isn't it? Because it's a bit like speeding. Doing 31 miles an hour on a 30 limit. You've broken the law. You have broken the law. But you've only just broken the law.
Yeah.
And I can understand.
Mean to.
Yeah, look, it's not going to make anybody's it's not going to make a difference to anything. In fact, you could even argue that the ball was maybe ever so slightly helped into Füllkrug's path more. And of course, he puts that away. Then that's the end of discussion. And I understand that if you do start saying, well, how heavy was the touch? Did it stop a goal scoring opportunity? Well, no, actually, it aided one, in a sense. Yeah. So if you get into the weeds of that, then we'll be there all night. And I think for the sake of sanity, did it touch the guy's hand? Did it not? It did. But it was just a flick, really.
It was. Weirdly, in the initial replay, when they were looking at the Füllkrug header, I was like, "Oh, did that touch Adams' arm?" But then the two angles that we repeatedly saw that supposedly VAR was showing the referee, it was really, really difficult to tell. Wasn't it? The angles were bad, so it was difficult to be clear either way. But it probably has hit his arm. It's one of the letter of the law ones, as we've just discussed, and it's an absolute sickener for Bournemouth, really. But
he didn't complain either. You could see.
No,
I think the argument. I mean, old Smudger Smith on commentary or co-coms was very clear that he felt the arms were in a pretty natural position because if you throw your body in like that, it's hard to keep the arms down, but they are quite high, and so I think for the referee, if the referee's saying, well, they were high, but they were, again, it's a minefield, and the referees they are only carrying out what they're kind of told to. I know sometimes referees can make interesting decisions, but I thought by and large you kind of go, you've got to take that speeding ticket because you were doing 31 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone.
The referee's surely thinking that the whole time he's looking at the screen, just go, for God's sake, why has this had to happen? Oh, I guess it's a penalty.
I'm going to have to give it.
That's what it says in the rules.
Oh, dear. So it was given, and Lucas Paqueta stepped up and coolly converted. He did that kind of stuttery run-up for a penalty, which, let's be honest, should be outlawed. I know it's been around for ages. Do you remember, though, back in the day, penalties never used to happen like that. No. And if anybody stopped for a second, you would think, well, hang about. There was one this will test you. There was one in the penalty shootout between England and Spain in Euro '96, and I think it was Amor who took the penalty. I forget his first name.
You are an absolute deviant.
Well, it is an England penalty shootout, so it's not
that we won. To be fair to you,
indeed. So perhaps it's not that deviant. And I remember he ran up, took a big old step, and then sort of passed the ball in the corner. I'm not sure if David Seaman even moved, and everyone's a bit like, hang about, that's not. So there was always this understanding that you don't stop, for your run up during a penalty shootout. Anyway, I'm sounding like an old codger. It's been around for ages. It should be outlawed.
How long do you get? Like, do you do a little dummy, then sit down for 20 seconds, and then stand up and kick it?
You could really waste time doing it, couldn't you?
You really could. I mean, it's a skill in itself, though, isn't it? I guess that's why it hasn't been outlawed.
I know. Well, he scored. And interesting with Paqueta. We'll get to the free kick in a moment, but I just want to unpack some Paqueta stuff. Ran over to Julian Lopetegui and gave him a hug after scoring. So, little vote of confidence for the manager there.
Yeah, that was interesting. Did you see the disdain on the faces of the three West Ham substitutes in the background?
Did they think they were going to get the hug?
They all looked just so blank, so blank. They looked completely unmoved by anything that was going on. It was really weird.
Are they thinking, he's after a start for the next game? Because he hasn't been starting of late, Paqueta. So it's like, look at him, teacher's pet.
I can only speculate.
Yeah, true. He also made a big old point of smooching the badge, didn't he? Declan Rice style, which was interesting. But this is from a man who tweeted minutes before the kickoff. I'm not from here. I will return home. He comes to get me, and with him I will go. Followed by a praying emoji, a hands up celebration emoji, and the musical notes emoji.
So is he praying that he'll get to leave West Ham via Twitter? It's an evening of mixed messages from Lucas Paqueta if you're a West Ham fan, isn't it?
It is an interesting one.
Is he kissing the badge goodbye?
Yeah. Was that a hug goodbye to Lopetegui?
Maybe.
Yeah, cheers, old boy.
I mean, There is talk, isn't there, that he's angling for a move back to Brazil in January, and obviously he's with all of the stuff hanging over him, he's clearly he's been affected by it on the pitch. He's kind of until fairly recently looked a shadow of himself. So maybe maybe that's looking likely, and it's kind of lifted a weight from his shoulders, because he was good tonight. He wasn't wasn't at his best, but he was better than he's been recently.
Well, the stuff that's hanging over him. I mean, if he is found guilty, he could face a hefty ban worldwide, so
yeah, exactly. And that's like, I mean, imagine getting yourself to a position where you're a professional footballer, play for your country. It's a lifestyle that you can only really have doing that thing, and then to have the possibility of that being taken away from you, it must be very, very stressful.
It must be. Yes, but as you say, there are a couple of clubs in Brazil that are looking at him. I mean, but it is odd. I mean, it's quite a cryptic tweet. Some was suggesting that they are song lyrics because of the musical notes emoji. I thought it might have been a Bible verse. I don't know. Whatever it is quite strange. But then kissing the badge and hugging the coach, it's almost as if he's saying, "Oh, yeah, no, don't listen to that. I'm really keen to be staying here." But anyway, he tucked the penalty away with some style, and it's just as well, actually. I think, what is that? Only his third goal this season. He's not produced that many goals and assists so far, not having the best of seasons. As you say, there is something hanging over him. You have to say he dodged a bullet not going to Man City in the summer, Jim.
Yeah.
With something we can all agree on. But he got a goal tonight, and I did wonder if it was going to be the winning goal. Was it not the winning goal?
You know better, don't you?
Enes Ünal.
We all know better now.
Jim, I'll be honest with you. There's sometimes when players get a free kick and they line it up, and you think, mate, that is quite far out. You could maybe swinging the ball in, dinking it over. I remember it probably would have been he who hasn't been mentioned for good reason for a long time, Ron Atkinson, doing co-coms on ITV with Clive Tilsley. A Champions League night at Old Trafford, Manchester United versus Barcelona, one of the 3-3s, and David Beckham had a free kick about 30 yards out, and I think the what would it have been? There was a competition, I think, flashed up on the screen or something like that, and Ron Atkinson said, "Well, I think Beckham's got more chance of winning that raffle or whatever than scoring from it," and of course he scores one of the best free kicks he's ever scored. That flashed through my mind, if I'm honest with you, when Ünal stepped up. And my goodness, as soon as it left his boot, Beckham-esque, absolute peach.
And one of those ones that's even better on the replay.
Oh, isn't it
it's just so perfect execution. Just brilliant.
That free kick was not dead central, but it was fairly central. So to beat the goalkeeper from there, I think sometimes a free kick that is central is sometimes a little bit harder because the goalkeeper's positioning might not be right in one corner, if you see what I mean. So to get it over the wall, the dip on it was something else, and the swerve just takes it away from Fabianski, who had a brilliant game, by the way.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That was what I was going to say as well. Fabianski made some really, really big saves, like kind of quite serious goal-saving saves on a couple of occasions. So that there is that sense that he's having one of those days and he's not going to be beaten.
I mean, if he'd have
not
kept,
the case.
No, if he'd have kept that free kick out, he'd have been man of the match. There's no two ways about that. But I don't think any goalkeeper in the land would have kept that free kick out. I mean, before the two goals, I thought it might be, a tale of two goalkeepers, really, because Kepa made a few saves, but Fabianski really was very much ready for anything other than a spectacular, like one of the best free kicks you'll ever see. Bournemouth had 29 shots at goal. A record for them in the Premier League, which is, again, shows you their attacking intent. Fabianski made eight saves, and at the age of 39, doesn't look like he's slowing up anytime soon.
No, he really doesn't. The save in the first half from Dango Ouattara with his legs. Yeah. I know Ouattara kind of mishit it a little bit. I think he might have been deliberately trying to hit it into the ground, but he used every minute of his experience there, Fabianski. It was really, really good. Can I would like to give someone else his flowers. Edson Alvarez picked up his fourth booking of the season. So
he's gearing up for Christmas.
I mean, it's exquisite execution from a master of the form like that. If you want Christmas off, he's the benchmark so far. He is the pace setter on looking like he's going to do it.
Had Bournemouth had won this game, they'd be a point off Forest in fourth.
Wow.
They didn't win the game, of course, but I still think it's worth saying these words. We are now 16 games into the season. Okay, Liverpool and Everton have only played 15, of course, because that game was postponed. But we are very, very close to halfway in the season. Forest are 4th and Bournemouth are 6th. There's 3 points between them. Nobody would have predicted that. It really is quite something. And once again, the job Iraola's doing at Bournemouth is fantastic. Yeah. They are very much in that pack of sides. Same points as Villa, point above Fulham and Brighton, couple above Spurs, Brentford, Newcastle. They're in that pack where, I mean, it still seems to be unlikely that anyone from that pack, other than maybe Villa and perhaps Spurs, if they can turn around, would really push for a Champions League place. But as we know, it's 5 places this year in the Premier League. But they're and funnily enough, West Ham, their ambition now is to try and get into that pack, of course, and a couple of wins would do it. I'm not sure they would be able to keep pace with how they've been playing. But you said you felt you saw something from West Ham tonight, and maybe after that win against Wolves as well. Are they perhaps turning a corner under old Lopetegui?
They are, and it's interesting that you mentioned Wolves, because if there are any Wolves fans watching, this is proof of what you can achieve if you sack Gary O'Neill. So that's worth keeping in mind.
That's harsh on Gag, Jim.
Look, I mean, when else am I going to get an opportunity to say that? But yeah, like I say, so Bournemouth coming into this game, and I'm going to come back to Lopetegui, don't worry. They'd won their last 3, and only Chelsea could match that, who've won their last 5. So they're in a really impressive moment in terms of form. So I thought, that it's a pretty good result for West Ham, and I think they just look a little bit slicker and a bit more cohesive. It feels like there's a bit more of a plan. They also look like they've been sort of empowered with essentially permission to enjoy themselves and to try things. There were players kind of trying little flicks here and there and just being a little bit creative in a way that we haven't perhaps seen from them so much lately. And it makes me think that they are starting to essentially, get those ideas into practice.
Be a bit more expressive, maybe. Interesting what Thomas Souček said about Lopetegui. And he said Lopetegui spoke with us about being told he could be sacked if things don't improve. He said to us that he loves the pressure because it's always the way in football, which is a message that Lopetegui has been pretty consistent with in the last couple of months.
And I think actually they look like they're playing with a bit less pressure. Well, which is an interesting use of reverse psychology, really.
Well, it is, because Souček went on to say he told us we should enjoy the pressure because one day we won't play football. It's quite threatening on one hand from Lopetegui, but you get what he means. And perhaps that's it, really. I think that there is expectation on West Ham this season. We know that they wanted to kick on from the Moyes era, blah, 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 blah. You get bored of saying that, but that is the facts of the matter. They've been looking over their shoulders more than looking up the table so far this season. I think now, it'd be disappointed to be pegged back, but I mean, I think on balance, a point was probably fair, or maybe Bournemouth shaded it, but you get the drift.
It's a tough place to go, though, isn't it? We've seen them beat Arsenal and Man City there this season.
It absolutely is. So I think you're right. I get the sense that things are just beginning to change there at West Ham, and I think that they might start to pick it up a bit. I don't think they're going to go on a fantastic run or anything. I don't think that they're going to be challenging for like a Europa spot or something like that, a Europa League spot. But you never know. They could just ease that pressure on Lopetegui and then start to enjoy it a bit more. And if that is the case, well, you never know, as I say, because there's a pretty tight pack in there. There were reports that West Ham were considering Max Allegri as a successor to Lopetegui, but apparently the cost involved is quite substantial.
It's a funny one, Allegri, isn't he? Sort of floating around like that as this potentially really, really high-profile coach that no one seems to need.
I still can't get that image of him out of my head where he kind of ripped his shirt on the bench at Juventus, because I always thought he was a fairly calm head, and then I saw that and I thought, get him in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a manager ripping his shirt off to reveal a bit of his torso, yes, please. We don't have any of that in the Premier League, I don't think.
Not yet. Not till Pereira turns up.
Come on.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen. But anyway, now something else involving West Ham is sounding quite positive, I think. They are being linked to Randall Colomawani, the PSG forward, for a potential move in January, possibly on loan. But I think that would be a good signing if they could get him over the loan line.
Definitely something they need as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously they're without Mikel Antonio for very, very sad reasons, and Nicholas Füllkrug is still really kind of finding his feet as a West Ham player. It's a bit of a strange move, that one, isn't it, for him to make that move at 31? And obviously he's had injuries, so hasn't been able to get on the pitch that much. So kind of the jury's out on whether or not that one's going to work. But it's definitely a position where they felt light today, didn't they?
Yes, and Füllkrug, I know he scored against Leicester. It was just a consolation, but that chance he had, I'll understand it. They get the penalty and they score from it, but those are the moments. That is food and drink to him. We know that option he brings as a kind of more archetypal, at times old-fashioned centre forward. We saw him do that for Germany in the Euros. That's what you want him to do. That's food and drink to him. He's got to be gobbling those chances up. I know it's only one chance, but still. So you wonder if there's a confidence issue there. But Colin Mawani would be a very different option. I mean, people have often likened him to Thierry Henry. That style of play, and it was high praise indeed, but the style of play, I mean, he was brilliant at Eintracht Frankfurt. It's not quite worked out with him at PSG. Luis Enrique seems to not want him there.
Yeah. They're often a bit of a basket case of a club anyway, PSG, for various reasons. So,
I wouldn't judge him
the
on
expectation there is very, very high.
But he's a good player, and to be quite frank, and no disrespect, I'd have thought he could go to a bigger club than West Ham. Actually,
well, if they can get him on loan, they've got the opportunity to to make him feel really at home.
Yeah, it's the type of forward that, come the summer, if Manchester United do decide to try and sell Marcus Rashford and maybe one or two others and all the rest of it, the type of forward you think, can't get him, that type of player. But it remains to be seen. But if West Ham could get him in, and they seem to be the only ones linked to him at the moment, that would be quite the signing.